Here with Mike and Freddie. Tuesday Talks with Mike about writing.
Good morning, folks. Freddie, what are we talking about today? Oh, that's right, books on writing. For those of you who want to write for a living, there are no dearth of books on writing. John Braine was a great English novelist. His most famous book is probably Room at the Top, but he also wrote a book called On Writing Your Novel. And in it, John Braine said, don't even try to write a novel before you're 40 years old, because you simply don't have enough life experience to make it realistic. And that's good advice for the most part. There are always exceptions to these rules. Carson McCullough wrote The Heart is a Lonely Hunter when she was 24. And William Styron wrote Lie Down in Darkness when he was 27. These people are natural writers. There's nothing you can do about them. They're out there. But most people aren't natural writers, and you have to learn by doing. I always say that every would-be writer has a million words of bullshit clogging up his system, and you have to get that out before you get to the good stuff. But can writing books help you? Indeed they can. There's a lot of good advice in writing books. And I've acquired a few over the years. This is by James Michener, the great American novelist, whose books were enormous. These books are 250,000 words. He wrote Centennial, which is about Colorado. I've been reading it for 5 years and I'm almost finished. He wrote The Source, which is about the origins of Christianity. He wrote Caribbean, which is about the settling of the Caribbean first by the Native Americans and then by the West when they came. He hired legions of researchers, young people, because his books cover huge spans of history. The book Centennial about Colorado begins in the Jurassic period with the dinosaurs. Just to give you an example of the span of his writing. Is it a good book? It's a very good book because Michener knows what he's talking about. Here's another one. The Writing Life by Annie Dillard. She was another great writer. And there's a lot of good advice in here as to how that you can transmute that advice into your writing. That's up to you. Writers are people who have to write, but they also have to read. And we all learn to write by reading the books we like. And there's no greater example of that than Sherlock Holmes. I've been talking about endlessly because I have a Sherlock Holmes book coming out. But Sherlock Holmes is the most famous literary figure in history, and there are more Sherlock Holmes stories by far since the death of Conan Doyle than there ever were in his life. The thing about Sherlock Holmes is that Conan Doyle's writing style was so distinctive, it's easy to copy if you get into his head. There's the class consciousness, the lower classes constantly tugging at their locks and showing respect to their betters. And there's the formal way they had of speaking is, indeed, sir, I looked into it, because that was emblematic of the Victorian period. Perhaps the two greatest poles, when I say pole, I mean a North Pole and South Pole.
Just a second here. Hey guys, can you calm down a little bit? Hey,
We're trying to do
a video here, dogs. Okay, sorry for the interruption.
We've all heard of Ernest Hemingway, who forged a style that was made of plain words and simple sentences. And I think it was his simplicity of writing which made him a great writer, and people recognize that. At the other end of the pole, you have writers whose grandiloquence causes you to have a dictionary at your elbow at all times, because you're going to have to look up a word on virtually every page. And one writer who does it is Michael Chabon, who wrote The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay. He's a modern writer. He's working today. But if you read his books, they're very challenging. They're fun because he's got a seductive narrative voice. In Telegraph Avenue, which is a book he wrote about a record store in Berkeley, there's a chapter that's 5,000 words. It's about a parrot that escapes from its cage, and it's all one sentence. You have to read it to believe it. It doesn't flag at all. It's a good chapter because he knows how to use those words. Another writer who has an inimitable style is James Ellroy. Now, you may not know who he is, but you've seen the movie L.A. Confidential, which is based on his book. Ellroy makes Hemingway look endlessly wordy. He writes like a machine gun. He entered the room, he pulled a gun, he shot the man, rat-tat-tat-tat-tat. It works for the most part, although for the last 10 years I think he's written himself out of the game because while the sentences have gotten shorter, the books have gotten longer and more complicated until it's almost impossible to follow the plot.
What is this?
Stephen King,
Oh, okay.
on writing. This is a good book. Stephen King has a lot of good advice here, and some of it is to steer clear of cocaine. So I would advise you to follow that advice and check out his book. But there are a lot of bad books on writing too, very bad books. This is called Writing and Rewriting by Harry Shaw Jr.
Is that one that I got for you?
Yes, it is, my dear. Anne brought this book home for me.
I thought it would be good, but apparently not.
But it is good for the example it provides.
Okay.
Learning to spell correctly seems a hopeless task because so many thousands of words must be mastered. But it is well to remember that no one is expected to be able to spell all words on demand, and that only a comparatively few words are the most persistent troublemakers. If you take a look at this prose, it doesn't look like fun, does it?
No.
There's columns of lists.
But when was that book written? Do you know
let me
what? I
see.
mean, I think it's an old one.
Yeah, it is old. Oh, you know what? Jeez. That's something I've never looked at before. Harry Shaw Jr., 1937. And you know what I just discovered for the first time?
What? Who is this?
Dear Judy, best of luck to a real friend. You are awful sweet and very pretty. Keep your winning personality. You'll be a success in everything you do. Love, Carolyn.
Okay. Wow.
Now finally we come to the sine qua non and the ne plus ultra. The one essential writing book you must have. Dorothy Parker was a famous writer and a wit who met with other wits at the Algonquin Club in New York City in the 1930s, and she wrote, "If you have any young friends who aspire to become writers, the second greatest favor you can do them is to present them with a copy of the Elements of Style.
Oh, yeah, right.
The first greatest, of course, is to shoot them now while they're still happy."
Oh, no. Did she say that?
That's a direct quote from
Oh,
Dorothy
my
Parker.
gosh. Okay.
That's why she's a famous wit.
She's very funny. Very entertaining. Cool.
That's it.
Okay. Well, hopefully folks are enjoying these writing tips and, well, whatever. The very depths of knowledge Mike has about writing. All right. Thanks so much. Appreciate listening, watching. Thank you so much.